John, can you name two fitness companies that have built super strong brands?
Yeah, I can probably name more than two, but two that come to mind are CrossFit and Zumba, believe it or not.
Yeah, how about companies that didn't do a ton of branding but succeeded with direct response campaigns? Who are those guys?
So the masters of just slamming marketing down prospects' throats is the folks over at Beachbody, and they've made millions of dollars doing that.
It's two different approaches. We're going to dig deep into this stuff in just a minute so that you can build a better business. This is Run a Profitable Gym. I'm Mike Warkentin. I'm here with Two-Brain Chief Marketing Officer John Franklin, and we're going to talk about brand marketing and direct marketing. So my question for you, John, as the expert, what is the difference between these two things? Let's lay it out for our listeners.
So direct marketing's pretty straightforward. It's anything that is an offer to buy one of your existing services. So the most common example within the gym world would be a low barrier offer, like a $21 for a 21-day trial, or the infamous 6-week challenge that is omnipresent everywhere on the internet. Now, brand marketing is something that is directed towards building your brand, obviously. So that is what you stand for as a business. So that could be something like running a testimonial or running a brand story or creating a piece of content that tells what you're about. And both serve a important role in the marketing mix that we have as gym owners, but they're both very different and require different approaches and skills.
Yeah, and we were talking about this before the show, and you made the interesting point that you can't really do a lot of brand marketing if you don't have a brand. And that's a real problem in the micro gym industry because a lot of us, and I was guilty of this for a really long time. I didn't have a strong brand. I tried to serve everyone and all the people in between, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I couldn't really tell my brand story because I didn't really know what it was. And a great example I like of brand marketing is like a Budweiser or things like that, where a lot of times they're not saying, buy my beer. They're just showing you a bunch of horses and this is where the beer comes from and this is our story. They know their story cold. If you don't know your story, you're going to struggle. So that's an interesting one. I pulled this off of a website here. It says, important to build your brand before developing a marketing strategy because your brand affects the types of marketing strategies you'll employ. So what you're trying to do with a brand, building awareness among prospective customers and enable them to get to know and trust the brand, which takes time. So let's go back into some of your original stuff here. Let's look at some fitness brands that really did it right and built strong brands that people knew and recognized. You mentioned a couple off the intro. Who are they and how do they do it?
So yeah, we can talk about CrossFit. That's the world that both you and I come from. And the point you made in the beginning was right. Like most gym owners, when they start, don't have a great creation story or this great brand. For me, it was like, I like working out, so I will start a gym. And so that's not strong enough to like start a movement. And
not
so
compelling.
Exactly. And while that may be the true answer, the authentic one, that's not really something a lot of people are going to rally behind. There are things you can do later that can make your brand a little more authentic, cohesive, make you stand for something. But if you think of something like Greg Glassman, where he was slowly coming up with this revolutionary way of doing fitness, he was getting kicked out of all his other gyms. People were coming to him because he had this very unique approach. When people left his gym, they wanted to continue doing it and teach it to other people. So he went to the internet and started sharing it. He built this devout community around this idea, which is you can lift weights and you can run and you can do different movements and things should be for time and fitness can be competitive and you shouldn't eat a ton of processed sugar and simple carbs if you're not exercising. And a lot of people got behind this and it grew like wildfire. The second one I said was Zumba, and Zumba was in a lot of ways a precursor to CrossFit in that they made it really easy to be an evangelicalist of the brand, in that at the time you know if you want to start a dance studio you needed $100,000 in a build out. But when Zumba came along, it was, hey, you come do a certification course for $300. You can use the name Zumba. You can rent out a room in your local church for $20 and you can have 30 of the members show up, charge them whatever you want, and you pocket the difference and you're in business. And you can share this thing where fitness can be fun and done anywhere, and it doesn't have to be expensive to start a fitness brand. And both of those obviously did really well until they didn't.
The CrossFit brand was interesting. And a lot of that came, I think, from Greg himself, where he was uncompromising. He knew exactly what he was and what he wasn't, and he was adamant about it, and he didn't bend. And that was a really interesting thing. World-class fitness in 100 words is a pretty strong brand statement that a lot of people can parrot off the top of their heads, even now. And it's interesting because what you were saying, like, I did the same thing as you. I like working out. I have a gym, and we serve everyone. That's just not compelling at all. As my business has evolved and I've gotten out of it, it's my wife's things now. And she's passionate about making women between 25 and 65 really strong and really fit and really healthy. That's a much more compelling story, and it's directed in. We have some great resources for gym owners about how to figure out what your niche is and what your brand is. I'm going to link to one of the shows. Kalita, who works for you over at Kilo, talked about that. We're going to put a link in the show notes to some stuff that you guys can dig into if you want to clarify who you are and what you do. You mentioned Beachbody. So they didn't do a ton of branding, but they made millions and millions and millions. How did they do that?
Right. Like their primary brand was P90X. And the reason P90X became known was just that so many freaking people bought it. And what they did was they just found cheap attention and exploited it. So they were very early to infomercials, and they figured out a winning formula where, hey, if we slap together some programs, we put some testimonials here, we say these words, this is our offer stack. And then if we run 1,000 eyeballs to this thing for X dollars, we know we'll sell Y. And they just repeated that over and over and over and over and over again, and literally made 9 figures rubber stamping the same formula across a bunch of different programs. So
I don't have a clue what the company's about.
Neither do they right now, to be fair. They just rebranded Two-Body to be a little more inclusive. And so they actually went public during the SPAC boom in 2021. They're trying to find their way now. But that's an example of brand, not having a brand comes back to bite you a little bit. And they're trying to backpedal and do a lot of that now. But they found this winning formula and rubber stamped it over a bunch of different fitness programs and had a nice little money printer for a long period of time there.
Yeah, like I say that I didn't know what their brand was, but it didn't matter because everyone I knew had the DVDs and was talking about it, right? So I didn't know what they stood for necessarily or what they were doing or even what their logo looked like, but I knew that everyone who came to my gym had tried P90X and wanted to try more stuff like it, or people had the DVDs or whatever. And they made, like you said, 9 figures doing this. And that was without me understanding what the company stood for. I just knew that they were kicking out spicy workouts that you could do in your living room on a DVD. And it worked really, really well. So essential elements, we'll talk for gym owners. One gives gym owners takeaways and things that they can do. What are essential elements of strong direct action marketing at the micro gym level? What are we looking for here?
A call out. So who it is you are targeting, a clear explanation of the benefit. So why they should buy the thing that you are selling. It is helpful to say what pain points they will avoid by going with your service. And then some scarcity element is great. So, hey, we only got 6 spots left for this thing. And then a clear call to action, whether that be buy this thing now, book a sales call, or, message us to get more information. And that's really it.
Now, you spend a lot of time in this world looking at advertising, especially gym advertising. How often, let's say like a percentage or out of 10, how often do you see gyms doing all of those things really well? Is it frequent or rare?
Yeah, it's super frequent. So more or less the most common campaign is a 6-week challenge, and it hits on a lot of those elements. Like the most pervasive ad seen on fitness feeds is I'm looking for 10 Philadelphia women looking to transform their body in the next days. A quick explanation of what the program is about, and then asking them to book a call. And that is on everything, is short and sweet, and has worked really well for the past 50 years. Like before it was a great Facebook ad, it was a great magazine ad. Before it was a great magazine ad. What was before magazines? I don't even know. Before it was a great Facebook ad, it was a great video. Before it was a great video, it was a solid magazine ad. And I actually did a presentation at the Two-Brain Summit where I pulled some of like the old 6-week challenge ads from the back of magazines to show how little the copy has changed over that course of time.
So it doesn't have to be complicated. You basically just have to solve a problem for a specific group of people and tell them what to do and maybe give them a little bit of urgency.
I mean, the human psychology doesn't change a bunch. It's the medium by which we consume our information. And then, the back end of it is a math game. So, hey, you got to get X amount of eyeballs to see this thing to get one person to take the desired result you want. And then based off of that, you calculate how much money you make once you sell whatever the thing is that you're trying to sell. And if you can do that profitably, you try and do as much of that as you possibly can without breaking your business.
And so maybe the psychology hasn't changed, but the mediums have changed. And so if you think about what we're looking at now on the blog this week, Chris Kruger is writing about something you can do very easily in direct action today, and it's selling by chat. And like all you're doing essentially is messaging. And John, you spoke about this at the Two-Brain Summit as well, messaging the people who like, follow, comment on your stuff out there and talking to them. And when the time is right, asking them to come in for a free consultation. Talk to me a little bit about how that direct action has worked very well for people in this sell by chat format.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. A lot of times people who are struggling with their marketing will come to me and say, hey, I have a website dialed in, I'm running Facebook ads and nothing seems to work for me. And then the first question I'll ask them is, well, how many people have you talked to about your gym today? And the answer is more or less always 0. And so it's like, hey, while you're doing some of this other stuff that's maybe a little more advanced, the primary thing you need to think about is how many conversations you're having with prospects. So, the thing I tell everybody in the Two-Brain group is more conversations equals more conversion. So yeah, in something like a sell by chat or messaging followers or engaging with your existing audience a little more, you're increasing the number of prospective members you are speaking to every day. And when you talk to more prospective members, you sell more prospective members. And so it's a powerful strategy. It's very simple, but it's not easy to do consistently.
So if we're talking moving on to brand marketing, that's a little bit different. How does that complement direct action marketing? Like how can gym owners out there use brand marketing and building their brand to make their direct action stuff more compelling?
I mean, good brands convey trust. And so when you have trust, it makes it easier to sell people stuff, right? One of the advantages I have marketing Two-Brain is that, we've been telling Chris's brand story every day on the blog for the last 8 years. And people have been listening to this podcast for 7 years and know that we put out good information and we partner with very reputable people in the space. And we have a backlog of customers who say good things about us. And we display them prominently and tell their stories and people know what we're about. And so then when I ask them to book a call or buy a ticket to the Two-Brain Summit, they have that backlog of content. They understand what Two-Brain is, and there's a little bit of trust there, and they're more likely to pay $500 to go see some of our mentors and top industry pros speak in Chicago versus if I was John's Gym Consulting Company and nobody knew who I was, I'd have a much harder job. I'd probably need to spend a lot more money to get that same $500 in someone's pocket, get them to close down their gym or leave their gym for a couple of days to go watch a similar event.
So what would you think is the best step for a gym owner if they want to start building a brand right now? So first of all, I'll tell you, you have to have a brand. You have to have an idea of what your story is and your avatar, client avatar, your niche, all those essential things. What would you do to start? And I mean, I'll toss out one of the things that you said, like, even getting someone to do Google reviews is a start to getting your brand out there, right? You're having people say, I like this thing and I recommend it to other people. What are other things that people can do? Like, do they need to start running, like, say, brand advertising where it's just like the story or snapshots of their brand? Or what would you do to help them start clarifying in the market who they are and what they do?
Well, if your story sucks, you don't want to spend a lot of money or time telling it, but there are other things that you can do, right? There's a book that came across my desk. Brandon Cullen of Metabolic, who was from the CrossFit world, used it when he was building out the Metabolic franchise system, and they're now somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 locations. It's called Primal Branding, and basically a framework for creating a belief system that attracts communities of people who want to believe. That's like the tagline there. And we talked a lot about the creation story, which is one element of the 7, but there are plenty of there are 6 other things that you can do, because of acknowledging that not everyone's creation story is the most interesting in the entire world. So the most important one is like having a strong leader. And so, that is something that I think watching kind of the rise and fall and I guess now plateau of the CrossFit brand, losing Glassman was was huge. It was something that was felt strongly within the community. Another one is non-believers, so being polarizing. So CrossFit was incredibly good at attracting criticism, and it was incredibly good at attracting fanatical people that would go and defend. And you see a lot of that now in the diet space. So like carnivore, for example, is something that just like pisses off a lot of people, and then has a lot of people screaming at those pissed off people, and it naturally spreads the word. And then you have things like sacred words and rituals. So you have your WODs and your Metcons. And so that you have your own language and these things that you do that are different that you identify, can easily identify another CrossFitter versus someone who doesn't believe in the methodology. And then there's the actual creed. So if you have a weak creation story, having a strong creed is important. So an example from Metabolic, which I was talking about before, is they treat their gym like a workout room. And so when the class starts if the class starts at 6, the door locks in the front of the building at 6. So if you show up at 6:01, you're not working out. Doesn't matter if your kid was late or crying or whatever was happening in your life. And they get 1-star reviews for that all the time. But it creates this polarizing thing, and people talk about it. One response to one of those polarizing reviews actually went viral and had over 4 million impressions from people arguing either way about it. And so, yeah, it's not just, hey, I'm John, why did I start this business? There are a bunch of other things that you can do to create a strong brand. And that framework, those 7 things that we just talked through, it's a good starting point for anybody.
So Chris has talked about quick casting. So for him, it's a short, direct shot of branding into the marketplace. He does it for his gym, Catalyst. He gets on there and does a weekly Catalyst show where he does very quickly states the brand and brings some things out for his market. So what do you think of that, John? The idea, like Chris says, I'll give you some prompts here. He says, imagine I'm interviewing you, and listener, you're going to record a response to, why did you start this business? That's going to be your first one. Your second one, how has this business changed since your first year? What is the mission of your business? So those are 3 shows right there that you could launch as very short podcasts that show branding. You do YouTube, podcast, however you want, combo. What do you think of that idea, John? Is just weekly content designed to state who you are and what you do. And you can frame this around programming briefs or like upcoming events or something like that. It's almost like a digital newsletter kind of thing. What do you think about it?
So in the worst case, it's not going to be detrimental, right? Unless your mission is something like anti-Semitic or political, talking about these things is not going to hurt you. And then at best, it can create a cultish following, right? But the trick is to try and be authentic, right? If you're running a local CrossFit gym with 75 people and you're stating that your mission is to, cure world hunger, not a lot of people are going to be able to rally behind that. But if it's like, hey, I grew up in this town, I see how, sugar and leading a sedentary lifestyle has affected all these people in my family. And, I was overweight and I wanted to, and then I found the solution through XYZ. And my mission is just to help as many people as I can in this town with this methodology. It's my passion. And it's the thing that I live for. I'm from here. I was raised here, and, I'm going to leave the town better than I found it. If you want to join me on that mission, let's have a chat. Something like that could be a very strong thing because it sounds a lot more authentic. It's something that people can rally behind and feel about.
I'll put a link in the show notes, listeners, for you to take a peek over at what Chris is doing at his gym. And you guys can take a look at the Catalyst Quickcast and see if that's something that you want to do as well. John, we started working together about 5 years ago. You were in big time into the pay-per-click stuff because you were doing a lot of Facebook advertising and so forth. We kind of as a business and as a unit have evolved into more content marketing, and your views have changed a little bit. Talk to me about, because the quick casting is essentially content. It's content with a whole dose of branding in it. How have your views of content marketing changed over the last few years, maybe 5, since Facebook advertising started to change a little bit?
So I think my view on brand has changed, and it has changed in that I think it's a lot more important than I initially made it out to as a novice business owner. So if I was to start a new project today, I would spend probably 1,000 times more effort on hashing out the concept and what it stood for and the aesthetic of the space. For example, I own 5 gyms. We didn't even have a common name. So everyone was his own kind of name, like just no brand whatsoever, and just relied, just rode the glory wave of Facebook ads, and that worked for me. But like I said, coming into a business and running ads for Two-Brain, which is a business with strong reputation, being involved with Kilo, where we were very deliberate about building brand and reputation there, I realized how much easier that second piece is if you nail down that first piece. And while if you look at some of Kilo's marketing versus Two-Brain's marketing, those are very different brands, even though there's a lot of overlap in terms of the talent working on them. And I think if you ask someone who's working both those, who uses those two services, what each stands for, I think they would give you answers that are pretty close to the answers that I would give. And that makes the ad piece easier.
And I agree, because we teach Two-Brain clients to run 4 different funnels that can operate all at the same time. They're referrals, organic social media, content, and paid ads. Those are loosely ordered. Referrals is probably the first thing you want to do, because your current clients are going to have friends and family members that you can get. So every client should be a +1 at minimum if you do that properly. Then you've got organic social media. That doesn't cost you much more than a few minutes to put up some posts regularly. Content maybe takes a little bit more time if you're making a podcast, YouTube video, or blog, something like that. But again, still not a lot of expense beyond your time, especially as a founder. You probably have that time if you're just in the new stages of gym ownership. And then Chris's 4th funnel is that paid advertising funnel. If these things are all working at the same time, they work really, really well. And you don't always have to have them working. Like Chris will tell you, maybe right now we just do referrals. We'll work on paid ads down the line. But the gym owners that are wanting all 4 at once have a really strong, like a steady stream of high quality, hot leads for the most part, because they're building their brand at the same time as they're running all the other campaigns. And those direct action campaigns, then when they say, hey, I've only got 5 spots left for this brand new program to help you lose 10 pounds in the next 6 weeks or whatever it is, that works because you've got this warm audience who knows, likes, and trusts you. John, in your travels, have you seen any gyms, and you don't have to remind them by name, but gyms that they have a brand, like right off the bat? Because back in the day, we were sloppy about it. I was the same as you, where my brand was a thing in my mind, but not communicated in the market. Are you seeing more gyms now in 2024 that just have like a thing? You can smell their brand when you walk through the door?
Definitely. Check out Dane McCarthy over at the Athletic Clubs. He's someone who has a very clear brand and a very clear avatar that he's going after. And he's also they have a gym uniform. Everyone wears black and white, the aesthetics, black and white. They train in what's called squads, and it's meant to recreate the college locker room, college team vibe. And they're doing a great job getting that younger Gen Z population that, has high-paying jobs, and they're nailing it. Another one is Cassie Day, All Day Fit. She's out of Toronto, and her whole thing is representing underrepresented bodies in fitness. So if you take 2 seconds on her website or her Instagram, it'll be very clear what that means, who she's targeting, and what she does. And again, if you have a very strong brand, you may not need paid ads at all. Like you talked about the 4 different funnels, being weak in one can tell you about the other, right? So if you're weak in referrals, you can make up for it by being really strong at paid ads. But being weak in referrals tells you that your service is crummy and there's something that needs to be fixed there. Where if you're weak in paid ads, that may be deliberate because you're getting so many referrals, and that's not something, if you're happy with where your business is, by all means, don't go out and offer a low barrier offer, a 6-week challenge. Don't do that. But yeah, you need to look at all 4 of them and find the mix that is right for you. But it is common to see gyms with very large, well-established brands not doing a ton in the paid marketing realm because they don't need to.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that I see, the biggest mistake that I see when people, I come in from a content marketing standpoint, I see people starting something and then stopping. And I can't stand that, because if you're going to start like a podcast or a blog or whatever it is, YouTube channel, you got to keep it going, because if your brand is this sporadic kind of, it happens every second Thursday on the 3rd month of every, leap year, that doesn't do anything for a brand. What you see is from the strongest brands in the marketplace, in any marketplace, is this just drumbeat of this is who we are, this is what we do over and over again. And you can think about, Apple, Bud, all these other ones, these long-term iconic brands that always do the same kind of thing. you get to know, like, and trust them because they're always more or less the same. There's small variations as products or services evolve, but they're doing this constant standard beat of always doing stuff in the marketplace. People see that. But what I see in gym owners very constantly is I started a podcast and it's like 7 episodes in, it's gone. And that shows weak branding to me. That's not a commitment to that content. Say the same thing with social media, where you'll look at a gym and they'll have a whole bunch of social media showing some stuff, but then it just dies for 3 months at a time and there's just nothing. And you wonder if they're even still open. So I'll give you a piece of advice, guys. If you're working on your brand through the content or organic social media funnels, make a commitment to it, set aside the time and hammer it out every single time. And again, Chris is going to give you step-by-step instructions on the blog this week to quickcast if that's the way you want to pursue it. You can do it probably in about 5 to 10 minutes a week if you do it right. And Chris has step-by-step stuff for you. John, let's, as we send people out the door here, let's give them a couple of things that they can do. Branding action. Is there anything that you would recommend that gym owners can do, maybe in addition to podcasting or quickcasting, to start building their brand? What is an essential action they could take today?
I mean, I want to make a quick comment that to your point, you have to be very long-term oriented for any of that content marketing stuff to work. Like for the listeners, Chris Cooper, Mike Warkentin, these guys, they're sick in the head. They're just built different. They can do this thing for years and years and years and years and let it pay off. Like it is very, very hard to do when you're getting it off the ground and you're posting to 5, 6 people. You're terrible at what's going on. Like,
screaming into the void.
Well, even Two-Brain, like today, I looked at our analytics and there was a page on our site that was getting a ton of traffic. And it was from a blog post we literally wrote 2.5 years ago. And it did nothing. And then all of a sudden and it just works in this weird, unpredictable way. But to your point, you have to be consistent. But it's painful as someone who has a podcast now and knows that like over, for 2-3 years, you have no clue if it's working or not. And so that's why most people quit. I think some people, like I said, Mike and Chris, they're built for it. They can do it, and they just put out good work. They do it consistently. It feeds something in them. If you're not one of those people, you gotta find a medium that works for you, whether it's writing, quickcast. Like there is something that you should be able to do, but to Mike's point, you have to do it consistently over an incredibly long period of time for it to be worth your while.
And I'll give you a shortcut though. If you're a Two-Brain client, the Content Vault has literally years of content that you can just take. All you have to do is customize it very quickly for your gym. There's blogs, there's stock imagery, there's entire social media campaigns. There's more than a year worth of stuff that you could just download and funnel out on a calendar if you so desired. And that would take care of an entire year of content that would help you learn about it and start to build momentum as you build your audience. So if you're not interested in that kind of stuff, there are done for you services out there for Two-Brain clients that will help you do that. Direct action, John, would we be talking about like a 5130 post, or would we be talking about what would be the best thing for a gym owner to do right now? Sell by chat, what would you recommend?
Yeah, 5-1. Like if you need client today.
Yeah, then let's tell them what a 5130 is. How does that work?
Go on your Facebook page and you make a post saying that you're looking for 5 people who want to transform from whatever the services you're offering in the next 30 days. And you ask them to comment below if they're interested. And then someone comments, you start chatting with them. And it works incredibly consistently. Some gym owners do it once or twice and kind of forget about it. The best gym owners do it over and over and over and over again. Kind of like the best gym owners at ads have been running the same set of ads more or less for the last 10 years. So works, do a lot of them.
5 people who want to do one thing over the next 30 days. That's the formula 5130. People who would use this post generate tons and tons of conversations, and many of them, and I specifically asked our gym owners about this, many of them will tie like large amounts of revenue or new clients to just these posts. And people say, I made this post, I literally got 3 new clients. But you can't just make the post and walk. You have to engage them. And that's that sell by chat tactic. Again, Chris is writing about that in the blog. So please make sure you check that out this week as well. John, branding and direct action, brand marketing, direct action campaigns. Thanks for laying it out for people. And we'll see you next time when you're hosting the show.
All right. Thank you, Mike, for having me.
All right. I'm Mike Warkentin. This is Run a Profitable Gym. Please subscribe so you don't miss a show. John is always here with some of the best business owners in the industry. I've got all sorts of gym owners, and Chris Cooper chimes in all the time with his expertise and perspective from the very top of the hill. Thank you very much for being here, and we'll talk to you next time. And now here's Chris himself with a final message.
Hey, it's Two-Brain founder Chris Cooper with a quick note. We created the Gym Owners United Facebook group to help you run a profitable gym. Thousands of gym owners just like you have already joined. In the group, we share sound advice about the business of fitness every day. I answer questions, I run free webinars, and I give away all kinds of great resources to help you grow your gym. I'd love to have you in that group. It's Gym Owners United on Facebook or go to gymownersunited.com to join. Do it today.